Setting the record straight, meanwhile, Jill McCabe, wife of the fired FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, is defending herself with an op-ed in the Washington Post today. Here's what she says. She addressed her failed run for Virginia State Senate and President Trump's tweet denouncing her and her husband as corrupt. Here's what she writes. To have my personal reputation and integrity and those of my family attacked this way is beyond horrible. It feels awful every day. It keeps me up nights. I made the decision to run for office because I was trying to help people. Instead, it turned into something that was used to attack our family, my husband's career, and the entire FBI. Joining me right now to talk more about that is the Washington Examiner White House reporter, Sarah Westwood. Sarah, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Your take on Jill McCabe's op-ed today.
Well, I think it's certainly interesting to hear her side of the story. She has been sort of a silent character in this whole drama surrounding Andrew McCabe, dating back to 2016 when Republicans invoked her campaign to use against Hillary Clinton as a sign of how far their corruption reached. I do think it's interesting, though, because the issue that she's addressing, her political campaign, really has nothing to do with the reasons why Andrew McCabe was fired and the reasons why he personally came under scrutiny in recent months. That has to do with a completely separate incident of McCabe allegedly leaking sensitive details about an ongoing investigation to reporters without seeking authorization. That has nothing to do with Jill McCabe's campaign, and it has everything to do with Andrew McCabe's personal conduct as a head of an investigation.
That's right. And it also, by the way, includes an incredibly biased approach with which Andrew McCabe was leading. He was the deputy director at the time, and we see all of the texts between Peter Strzok, his underling, and his girlfriend, Lisa Page. And we see the way that they handled the Hillary Clinton investigation, calling it a matter instead of a criminal investigation, and this narrative that they created around Donald Trump. So there was clear bias. She doesn't address that in the op-ed.
Right, and I think that that is part of what makes it sort of a straw man argument. Sure, there were certainly Republicans, Donald Trump himself, who exploited the details of her campaign contributions from Terry McAuliffe, who is a close ally of the Clintons, for their own gain. But what we're really talking about now with regards to Andrew McCabe is whether he lied to the Inspector General about leaking to reporters, whether he tried to spin the Hillary Clinton email investigation in a more favorable light to protect himself personally when he was coming under scrutiny in the media. We're seeing reports now that Director James Comey may have even told the Inspector General that McCabe never actually sought authorization directly from him, as McCabe has apparently claimed to investigators. So there is a whole lot of moving pieces here that really have nothing to do with Jill McCabe.
Yeah. It seems like these two are fighting now, Jim Comey and Andrew McCabe, because Andrew McCabe, now it appears, was running the whole thing. He was really in charge, and
right, he ought to hurry up and get a book out so all the talk show hosts will. He can't beat Comey to the punch. But I read the Jill McCabe op-ed about how her family has been attacked, and she goes into her running for state senate in Virginia and the contributions. She says in this editorial that Andrew's involvement, McCabe's involvement in the Clinton investigation came not only after the contributions were made to my campaign, but also after the race was over. It still looked bad.
By the way, so what?
So
what?
So
it was after. It was $700,000. So what? It was after, before. It's the same thing.
Were the contributions made by a PAC tied to the croniest of Clinton cronies?
Of course.
Yes,
Terry
nearly $500,000, number one. Number two, did your husband work on the Hillary Clinton investigation of her email server after the fact? Absolutely. She says it was cleared by the FBI's ethics office. But you know what? In an election year, if you want to be careful, you step back, you step off.
Yeah.
That's not what happened.
And this is just one of the many conflicts of interest in the DOJ. I mean, you had this guy, Bruce Orr, who is married to a woman who worked for Fusion GPS. You have Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
Bruce Orr was the #3 guy at the Department of Justice.
It's stunning. But,
really?
Sarah,
and you don't tell anybody your wife is working for the firm that's creating this dossier?
Oh, it's infuriating to so many Americans. But Sarah, what can Jeff Sessions do? What actions can he take within the FBI? Should he just start firing people? I mean, what can he do?
Well, at the moment, I think we see Jeff Sessions putting pressure on his FBI to be more transparent with these congressional committees who are requesting documents related to Andrew McCabe, related to the FISA warrant that was obtained using the Fusion GPS data on Carter Page, a former Trump campaign advisor. So you've seen very recently, last week, in fact, that FBI Director Chris Wray has promised to double the number of staff who are working on producing those documents to Congress. I think that's not only a result of the pressure that lawmakers are putting on the FBI, but the pressure from the top. Attorney General Jeff Sessions realizing that one way to maybe creep back on Trump's good side is to speed up that process.
I'm sorry, Sarah, but I mean, if 24 individuals produce 3,000 documents in 6 months, I don't know how. What is doubling going to do? What? So 54 or 56 people are going to produce 6,000 documents. They're looking for 1.2 million documents. I think the real answer that we needed to hear from Christopher Wray is we're going to make this a priority, not double the number of staff.
And stop redacting things that have nothing to do with national security. Stop redacting names to clearly protect the previous administration, the Obama administration.
Yeah, because you wanted to go to a cocktail party with a FISA judge so that you could schmooze him because you wanted to talk to him tomorrow and say, hey, we have this dossier, let's use it to wiretap.
A judge that stepped off of the Michael Flynn case very, very late in the process, and nobody really understood why. Now we know. But again, those redactions are absurd.
They're absurd.
And Congress only found out what was actually redacted when they went over to Justice and looked at the raw documents.
Right, exactly. And only a handful of them were able to see the raw documents. So there's a lot here, and we know that, Sarah.